Hey, what's going on, family? Thank you for tuning in with me to this week's episode. Join us here today as we continue our discussion on the adultery of two sisters in Ezekiel chapter 23. Today, here on the Last Things podcast. Damien coming to you once again with another fantastic episode of the Last Things podcast, where we are on a journey to truth. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to come before you once again as we discuss the word of God. How is everybody doing on today? I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in with me to this week's episode. As you can see, I am dressed down in my red in support of my Houston Texans as we just completed what I think was a very good draft for us. So this upcoming season, y'all better look out for us, man, because we coming in wrecking shop, as we say down here in Houston. Man, look, let me get this out the way. I know I left you guys out of the episode last week, okay? My father-in-law passed away on last week. So you guys, if you would, keep my wife, Sonia, lifted up in prayer, her and her family, the entire family, as we deal with the loss of my father-in-law, her father William, Sonia's the kids, and Sonia's sisters, as they begin to navigate through this. You know, it's never easy losing a loved one, but when you lose your father, you know, it hurts even the more. So you guys keep the family lifted in prayer as we get used to as my pastor's wife say, the new normal when you lose somebody. So guys, keep us lifted in prayer. Okay. Now, we left off at Ezekiel chapter 23. And God is talking about the adultery of two sisters, Ahola and Oholibah. Man, that's the first time I've ever been able to say their name in normal speed, because I had to slow it down because I'm like, man, I feel like I'm mispronouncing it, but I know I'm not. Okay. So anyway, so their names are Ahola and Oholibah. And we know the reason God calls them a name is Ahola meant wait a minute. Let me pull my notes up. Ahola meant the tabernacle. The tabernacle is not, oh man, I can't remember what it was. Aholibah means the tabernacle is in her. That's what Aholibah means. Ahola was the tabernacle. What was Ahola? Ahola was the tabernacle. Oh man, I can't remember what it was. I want to say it's the tabernacle not within us or not us. And the reason the reason God was saying that is because Ahola is the northern kingdom of Israel, and Aholibah is the southern kingdom of Judah. And of course, the southern kingdom of Judah, the capital is Jerusalem, and Jerusalem is where the tabernacle is. That's why God calls her Aholibah. The tabernacle is in her. God's tabernacle, the temple, is in Jerusalem, which is where? In Judah. So what happened? The northern kingdom of Israel, Samaria, with the capital is Samaria, they decided to create their own worship site. And that's why God gave them the name Ahola. That's why God gave them the name Ahola. And because the temple was not there, so they just created their own place of worship. Okay, so basically, what we talked about from verses 1 through 10 is basically talking about the destruction of the northern kingdom of Israel. Okay, now when we talk about that destruction, when we talk about that, that's an event that took some years. Okay. That wasn't just in one day the whole kingdom was wiped out. No, that took some time. Okay. It took a little time for that to take. It took some years before it was finally erased from before it was finally destroyed. Okay. And Ahola, God said, is the older sister of Aholibah. Why? Because Samaria was around a lot longer than Jerusalem was. Remember, it was all one kingdom until what happened? The kingdom split after Solomon passed away. So because Israel is still Israel, because the northern kingdom is still Israel, it was around a lot longer than the southern kingdom. The southern kingdom was just created, so that's why God said Aholibah should have been paying attention and see, should have been paying attention to see what was going on with Aholah, but they weren't paying attention. So now, as we left off, God is now about to speak to Aholibah. Okay, so let's do this. We left off at verse 11, so now let's pick up at verse 11. Okay. So verse 11 says this, and of course, I always tell you guys, I'm reading this out of the New Living Translation, okay? So my translation might be a little different, okay? If you reading it in the King James or the Message or the NIV or whatever version of the Bible you're reading, this just happens for me to be the New Living Translation, okay? So this is what it says, verse 11. Yet even though Aholibah saw what happened to Aholah, her sister, she followed where? Right in her footsteps. And she was even more depraved, abandoning herself, to her lust and prostitution. Verse 12, she fawned over all the Assyrian officers, those captains and commanders in handsome uniforms, whose charioteers driving their horses, all of them attractive young men. Verse 13, I saw the way she was going, defiling herself just like her older sister. Okay. So if we read what's going on, the first thing God said, Aholibah saw what was going on with her sister. So God is saying Aholibah, which we know is Jerusalem, saw what was going on with Aholah, Samaria. However, what is verse 10? What does God say? She became even more depraved, abandoning herself to her lust and prostitution. She became worse off than what they were. So what does that mean? Now, in the first video, we were going back and forth between here and Second Kings. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. Okay, Second Kings really is a shortened version of history. Okay, so what God is talking about here in Ezekiel, you can go back to Second Kings and kind of line it up with what he's saying. Okay, so what does he say? He said Aholah became more depraved than Aholibah. Okay, I mean Aholibah became more depraved than Aholah. Okay. In verse 12, what else did God say? She fawned over all the Assyrian officers. Okay. Just like Aholah was. She saw Assyria and wanted to be a part of them, right? Okay. So what is God saying? So let's do this. If we go to Second Kings chapter 16, let me pull it up on my laptop. Second Kings chapter 16. And let's go down to verse 7, okay? Now, let me kind of set this up for you, okay? King Ahaz is the king of Judah, okay? Years after Jeroboam, okay? Let's read what it says. King Ahaz sent messengers to King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria. I am with this message. I'm sorry, King Ahaz sent messages to King Tiglath with this message, okay? I am your servant and your vassal. A vassal is somebody that's just placed as a king, okay? Come up and rescue me from the attacking armies of Armene and Israel. Verse 8, then Ahaz took the silver and gold from the temple of the Lord and the palace treasury and sent it as payment to who? The Assyrian king. So the king of Assyria attacked the Armenian capital of Damascus and led its population away as captives. Did you see this here? King Ahaz begs the king of Israel, come save me. King Ahaz is who? The king of Judah. He's the king of Jerusalem. So who would King Ahaz represent? Aholibah. And what did God just say in Ezekiel that we just read? They were fawning over those Assyrian soldiers. And what does God say they were fawning over them? We read in history, King Ahaz, what was he doing? He was begging the king of Assyria to come save him. Let's keep reading. Let's keep reading what happens. In verse 10 of 2 Kings chapter 16, King Ahaz then went to Damascus to meet with King Tiglath. I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to beat his name up, okay? Of Assyria. While he was there, he took special note of the altar. Then he sent a model of the altar to Uriah the priest, along with its design in full detail. Uriah followed the king's instructions and built an altar just like it, and it was ready before the king returned from Damascus. When the king returned, he inspected the altar and made offerings to it. He presented a burnt offering and a grain offering. He poured out a grain offering, he poured out a liquid offering, and he sprinkled the blood of peace offerings on the altar. Did you see this? Let's keep going because it's getting a little worse. Verse 14, then King Ahaz removed the old bronze from its place in front of the Lord's temple between the entrance and the new altar and placed it on the north side of the new altar. He told Uriah the priest, verse 15, use this new altar for the morning sacrifices of burnt offerings, the evening grain offerings, the king's burnt offerings and the grain offerings, and the burnt offerings of all the people, as well as their grain offerings and liquid offerings. Sprinkle the blood from all the burnt offerings and sacrifices on the new altar. The bronze altar will be for my personal use only. Uriah the priest did just as King Ahaz commanded. You see that? King Ahaz took from the altar of God to create a altar to worship an idol god. You see that? Now, as crazy as this is, they didn't even do that in Samaria. We haven't seen it as we've read the word. We haven't seen it, but they haven't done anything like that. What did God just say? Aholibah became more depraved than Aholah. We're seeing it right here with King Ahaz. Just an example of some of the things that he's done. He was begging for the Assyrians to come. Then he sees an altar that he takes the design and brings it back and tells them, build an altar. And guess what? He takes that altar to replace the Lord's altar and say, y'all use that altar. Really? That's what God meant in Ezekiel chapter 23 when he said they became more depraved because Samaria wasn't even doing that. But then again, they couldn't do that because why? The real temple was in Jerusalem. But we didn't hear nothing about them taking from God's temple to worship idols like we heard here in with King Ahaz in Jerusalem. I've been telling people for a couple of years. Back in the day, there are some things that people would never do. One thing criminals would never do was rob from a church. They would never do that. They'll steal from everywhere else. They'll never steal from a church. Nowadays, people don't have the respect for the church like they used to. And what will they do? They'll steal from the church just like they'll steal from somebody's house. It's sad that people have lost the respect of God's things. And we see here in King Ahaz, that's what happened to him. He's lost the respect of God. He does not respect God's things. Why? Because you wouldn't have done what you did, because he would never done what he had done. But hey, he thought he was in the right. He didn't care. He's going to do what he's going to do anyway. Let's keep reading, okay? So let's go back to Ezekiel chapter 23. And let's go to verse 14. Let's look at verse 14. Verse 14, then she carried her prostitution even further. She fell in love with pictures that were painted on the wall. Pictures of Babylonian military officers outfitted in striking red uniforms. Verse 15, handsome belts encircled their waists and flowing turbans crowned their heads. They were dressed like chariot officers from the land of Babylonia. When she saw these paintings, she longed to give herself, verse 16, when she saw these paintings, she longed to give herself to them. So she sent messengers to Babylonia to invite them to come to her. So they came and committed adultery with her, defiling her in the bed of love. After being defiled, however, she rejected them in disgust. So now they have not only gone to Assyria, now now God says she's fallen in love with Babylonia. Meaning what? So now the southern kingdom of Judah, Jerusalem, not only began to worship the idols started picking up the idol worship in Assyria. Now they're starting to pick up to the idol worship in Babylon. What is going on here? And look what God says. God says, so she sent, meaning Jerusalem, sent messengers to Babylon invite them to come to her. What? So you mean to tell me now you've already been messing with the Assyrians. Now you're taking on Babylon, and you're inviting them to come over and you're inviting them in. Now, this is my opinion, okay? This is my opinion. I'm not saying it's true. This is my opinion, okay? Let's go back to 2 Kings. I think it's chapter 18, okay? This time we're going to go to 2 Kings chapter 18. Now, Hezekiah is now king in Judah. Now, Hezekiah did his best to do things that were right by God. However, he had a big mess up. Okay? So let me find it. Wait a minute. I don't think it's Hezekiah 18. I don't think it's 2 Kings 18. It might be 2 Kings. Let me see. Is it 2 Kings chapter 20? Yes, it is. I'm sorry. 2 Kings chapter 20. That's the one I need. 2 Kings chapter 20, verse 12. This is my opinion. This is what I think God might be talking about. I'm not sure. This is just my opinion, okay? Verse 12 says it's a 2 Kings chapter 20, okay? Soon after this, Merodach-Baladan, son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent Hezekiah his best wishes and a gift, for he had heard that Hezekiah had been sick. Verse 13, Hezekiah received the Babylonian envoys and showed them everything in his treasure houses, the silver, the gold, the spices, and the Aramaic oils. He also took them to see his armory and showed them everything in his royal treasuries. I'm sorry. There was nothing in his palace or kingdom that Hezekiah did not show them. Didn't God just say they invited Babylon over? And what happened? We're reading here, Hezekiah did something like that. He's showing them everything in the kingdom. Let's keep reading to see what happens. Verse 14. Then Isaiah. Wait a minute. That's a new one. We ain't heard about this. When we've been talking about Ezekiel, we've only been hearing about Ezekiel, and then we've made a connection with Jeremiah. But here in 2 Kings, Isaiah the prophet has now gotten involved. Man, let's see what Isaiah say. Verse 14. Then Isaiah the prophet went to King Hezekiah and asked him, what did those men want? Where were they from? Hezekiah replied, they came from the distant land of Babylon. What did they see in your palace? Isaiah asked. They saw everything, Hezekiah replied. I showed them everything I own, all my royal treasuries. Ooh. Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, listen to this message from the Lord. The time is coming when everything in your palace, all the treasures stored up by your ancestors until now, will be carried off to Babylon. Nothing will be left, says the Lord. Verse 18, some of your very own sons will be taken away into exile. They will become eunuchs who will serve in the palace of the Babylonian king, of Babylon's king. Then Hezekiah, verse 19, then Hezekiah said to Isaiah, this message you have given me from the Lord is good. For the king was thinking, at least there will be peace and security during my lifetime. You see that? Hezekiah showed the Babylonians everything everything, all the treasures, silver, gold, everything. Isaiah say, man, you gonna lose everything. Not only are they going to lose everything, your own children are going to serve in the Babylonian king's court. Why? All because he showed them everything. He showed Babylon everything that they had. And Isaiah was like, really? See, so now let's go back to Ezekiel chapter 23. Now when we read about it, about where he says she fell in love with where she said she sent messengers to Babylonian to invite them to come over. In my opinion, I think that's what God is speaking about. Because remember, God has been dealing with this for 429 years, I believe. He's been dealing with this for over 400 years. Let's just say that. He has been sitting back, biting his tongue, he's been warning, but now God is fed up. So all these things that God is speaking about to them, it's not just things that's happened within a month. This is stuff that's been going on for years. Here's the thing that you need to realize. You see how God has an issue with Judah and with Israel, and it's been going on for years of everything that's been going on. What make you think God doesn't feel that way about the United States with all the sin and idolatry that's going on in the world today? And God has been what? Not doing anything. He's been keeping quiet, and not keeping quiet, but he has not really punished us the way he's punished Jerusalem in Ezekiel. If they got the business from God, what make you think we not going to get the business from God? What the Bible say? He's the same, what? Yesterday, today, and forevermore. Best believe we are going to have to answer for a lot of the things that's going on in this country. We're going to have to. We always say what? God bless. But look at all the sin and everything that's running rampant. Look at all the things that we've become involved in. We can't ask God to bless. We asking God to bless, but hey, let's be real. If God is dealing with the children of Israel in this way, what make you think he's not going to deal with us in a similar way? The only reason is because of what Jesus did on the cross. Because you have people who are praying. You have a lot of his people praying, asking the Lord, have mercy on us. Have mercy on us. The prayers of the righteous availeth what? Much. And I believe because of the righteous people who are praying for us every day, I believe that's why God has not struck out on us like he really want to. What did God say in Ezekiel? Was it 22? I think it was 22. He said what? I was looking for somebody to stand in the gap and I couldn't find nobody. Best believe we got some praying Christians who are standing in the gap for us as a country. And I believe that's why God ain't really come at us like he did with the children of Israel in Jerusalem. I don't know where I'm going with that. That's just free, whatever. I'm just talking, okay? I'm just talking. But anyway, but I'm just saying, you see how God does things, you see how God is doing things in the Old Testament. It's gonna be similar when he's ready to finally cast judgment. It's gonna be similar. Okay. Now let's keep going. All right. Verse 18. In the same way, I became disgusted with Aholibah and rejected her, just like I rejected her sister, because she flaunted herself before them and gave herself to satisfy their lust. God say, I'm done with them too. God say, I'm done with them. Let's keep reading. Verse 19. Yet she turned to even greater prostitution, remembering her youth when she was a prostitute in Egypt. Ooh, you see that? God says she's even worse because she remembered in Egypt. What is God talking about? Remember when Moses got the children of Israel out of Egypt? And when Moses went up to talk to God, what happened? They built what? A golden calf. Where you think they learned that from? They learned that in Egypt. So all the idolatry that they saw in Egypt, it became a part of their mindset. And as they walked with God, what happened? They would always go back to that old mindset because that's what they were used to. So they would go back to that old mindset of idol worship. And listen, and God is saying this idol worship is adultery to him. Let's keep going. Okay. It's getting ready to get a little graphic in this verse. Okay. Verse 20. She lusted after lovers with genitals as large as a donkey's and emissions like those of a horse. I ain't got to say nothing else. Okay. That's how the New Living Translation puts it. I'm pretty sure the King James puts it a little worse. Okay. Verse 21. And so, Aholibah, you relived your former days as a young girl in Egypt when you first allowed your breast to be fondled. He's saying when you were young, you went back to what you learned in Egypt. God say you never, when he took them out of bondage, when he's carrying them into the promised land, he said in the back of your mind, you never forgot about what you learned in Egypt. You never forgot about those sinful ways. They took an old mindset into a new season. What have I always said? You cannot take an old mindset into a new season. You can't do it because you're not going to be successful. You've got to take a new mindset into a new season because your old way of thinking in the old season is not going to work for you in the new season. God is saying that same thing. I took you out of that land. And even though I took you out of that land, you still never forgot all the things that you learned to do in that land. Ooh, Lord have mercy. Man, let's keep going, okay? Let's keep going, all right? Let's keep going. Verse 22, because now it's going to get a little more interesting. Therefore, Aholibah, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I will send you lovers against you from every direction, those very nations from which you turned away in disgust. Now, let's stop here. So God says they turned away from those nations in disgust, right? Okay. Hezekiah did try to break away from Assyria. Remember what I said. Hezekiah did things that was right that was pleasing in the Lord's eyes. It's just when he showed Babylon all that stuff, that's what got him in trouble. But for the most part, he did try to break away from Assyria. So that's just my opinion. I believe that's what he did. Now, I saw when I was doing a study, one of the oh man, it was just on my word. One of the Bible websites that I use, commentary. One of the Bible commentaries said that they would just want that Judah just wanted the idolatry, that one wanted to just practice the idolatry ways, but they didn't want anything to do with the countries. In essence, saying they were just lusting after them, but they really weren't in love with them. Which he was, so that could be true. That could be true. It's mean we really just don't know. We really don't know. But let's keep going. All right. Verse why we don't know as far as why what was there discussed. I guess they felt like, hey, even though we're learning things, they doing things of them, they would never surrender to them. They want to be their own people, but they want to take from them. Okay. Now let's keep going. Verse 23. For the Babylonians will come with all the Chaldeans from Pekod and Shoa and Koa. Chaldeans are a tribe of people that were in Babylon. So a lot of times the Bible will interchange Babylon and Chaldean. They somewhat the same, but Chaldeans were just a tribe within Babylon. Okay. And all the Assyrians will come with them, handsome young captains, commanders, chariot officers, and other high-ranking officers, all riding their horses. Verse 24, they will all come against you from the north with chariots, wagons, and a great army prepared for attack. They will take up positions of every side, surrounding you with men armed with shields and helmets, and I will hand you over to them for punishment so they can do with you as they please. What is God talking about? An invasion. Notice who comes first in verse 23. The Babylonians are going to come. So what is God talking about again? He's talking about Nebuchadnezzar's third invasion of Jerusalem. Because remember, as I've said this several times in case anybody's listening for the first time, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, has invaded Jerusalem twice. He's invaded twice already. He came in and took a group back with him to Babylon. Who was a part of that group? Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they're with and they are with Nebuchadnezzar in the royal castle, in the royal courts, in the palace. Now, he comes back later on. He invades again and takes even more people, takes them back to Babylon. Not in the palace, though. They're somewhere else in Babylon. Who's a part of that group? Ezekiel is. Ezekiel is a part of that group. So now we are in between that second time and the third time. And when Nebuchadnezzar comes this third time, just as Assyria wiped out the northern kingdom, Nebuchadnezzar is going to wipe out the southern kingdom. And as we have read, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Look at verse 25. I will turn my jealous anger against you, and they will deal harshly with you. They will cut off your nose and ears, and any survivors will then be slaughtered by the sword. Your children will be taken away as captives, and everything that is left will be burned. Verse 26, they will strip you of your beautiful clothes and jewelry. Now, in those times when you committed adultery, one of the punishments was they would strip you and drive you away from your home. Okay? So now when God says He gonna strip you of your beautiful clothes and jewels, that's how they would punish a woman who was caught in adultery. And it's funny. Why? Because God has caught them in adultery, and he's punishing the entire nation the same way the people would punish an adulterous woman in that time. One of the punishments, the main one, is stoning, but also they could also strip you and drive you away from your home. Okay, let's keep going. In verse 27, in this way I will put a stop to the lewdness and prostitution you bought from Egypt. You will never again cast longing eyes on those things or fondly remember your time in Egypt. God say, when this is over, you'll forget all about Egypt. All of the sin that you learned in Egypt, he said, you'll forget about all of it when it's all done. I'll come back to that point that I'm going to make. I'll come back to it. Verse 28, for this is what the sovereign Lord says, I will surely hand you over to your enemies, to those you loathe, those you rejected. Verse 29, they will treat you with hatred and rob you of all you own, leaving you stark naked. The shame of your prostitution will be exposed for all the world. Verse 30, you bought all this on yourself by prostituting yourselves to other nations, defiling yourselves with all their idols. Verse 31, because you have followed in your sister's footsteps, I will force you to drink the same cup of terror she drank. Let's stop. God said what? Look at verse 30. You bought all this on yourself. Do you remember in Ezekiel chapter 18? I believe it's Ezekiel chapter 18. Is it chapter 18? It is. Remember when in Ezekiel chapter 18, when they came up with a saying, and in essence, they were saying they were being punished because of their forefathers' sins. And what was God saying? No, y'all being punished because of your own sins. Therefore, so remember that God isn't saying what? He said, you bought all this by yourself, on yourself, by prostituting yourselves to other nations. God says, you think it's about your forefathers. No, this is about you. So you're saying, wait a minute. Well, why is God talking about all their forefathers? Because they learned everything from their forefathers. They're doing what their forefathers taught them to do. They're doing what their forefathers taught them to do. Had they done things differently, God wouldn't be punishing them. But guess what? He's punishing them. Why? Because of all the things that they are doing. It's them that's God. It's all the sins, but he's dealing with this generation because of the sins that they're committing right now. For God, so in essence, he's not punishing them for their forefathers' sins. I guess you could say in a way he is, but he's also he's punishing them of their forefathers' sins, but he's also punishing them for their own sins, if that makes sense. He's punishing them for their sins as well. You know, when you have a person who's living a certain way and you living your own way, you doing your own thing, and you just living your life doing whatever, you might mess over people, you might lie, you might cheat, steal from people, you think you're getting away from it, right? You're not getting away, because one of the things that God will do, he'll take the sins he'll take the punishment you should have suffered, and he'll make your children suffer for it. We talked about that a while back. God will take the iniquities of the forefathers and visit them on the children's children. Meaning what? Your life, because you live in opposite of what God has wanted you to live, you live in a sinful life, the punishment that you should be taking, you'll take. But your children will handle some of your punishment too. And because you got to go back and ask yourself, could my children be dealing with a punishment from God? That could they be dealing with something that I did? Could some of the things they're going through in their life, could they be going through it because of something that I did? Hey, what's going on, family? Thank you for tuning in with me to this week's episode. Join us here next week as we continue our discussion on the adultery of two sisters in Ezekiel chapter 23. Next week, here on the Last Things podcast. Love you guys. Be blessed.